Hey everyone, it's Chuck Hogan with Your Best Life, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on all Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and of course on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So I got to tell you, tonight I'm overjoyed and stoked because this is a man who I've wanted to have on this show for quite some time. Not only is he my brother from another, he is an extraordinary businessman with, I think now to his credit, probably going on 17 to 19 companies, if I'm not mistaken. And it all depends because I don't know which ones he actually created this morning. So he is a mega entrepreneur. He is someone that you would say is a mover and shaker, but not just for the reasons that you think. Not because he's a centimillionaire, not because he owns jets and exotic cars and multiple homes, more so because he's a heart-centered, beautiful, God-loving husband, father, friend, and overall just amazing human being. My brother from another. Welcome, Mr. Preston Brown. Everyone, Preston, dude, I am so blessed to have you on tonight. And what a lot of you don't know about Preston is that he is not only an extraordinary businessman, but the way that he leads from his heart is a beautiful thing. And I asked him on the show specifically tonight to talk about 3 important factors that we in our YBL community cherish. And we're not going to get into all of it, but I will say this. We're going to talk about family. And first of all, though, his deep-seated faith and how that's actually created this unbelievable fortune, but not maybe in all the ways that we always think about fortune. So Preston, can I ask you, bro, first of all, how are you feeling? Because it's beautiful there, and look at the weather in your part of the universe. I got to say, faith for you, how would you describe your faith?
My faith. Well, I think faith is one of those trigger words. So I always like to make sure I dance around it really, hopefully articulately. Like, you know, if you go like this a little bit, you won't have virgin ears, and it's easier to talk about things that might otherwise trigger people. Faith for me, I believe it's energy you're receiving, right? Like we always in YBL, we talk about faith, family, fitness, and finance. And if family's sending energy out, faith is receiving energy. And I mean, a lot of people, they'll cross faith with religion, with spirituality, with beliefs. Faith for me is, how do I personally receive energy? Because you can't give more than what you've received. And if the entire point of life is to leave the world a little better place than you found it, you better make sure that you're receiving a good amount so that you can give it away in the way that compels you.
That's beautiful definition, and love the way that you frame that. Oftentimes, you and I have had discussions about this, especially with people in business, and for all of you out there in the world of media. YBL stands for Your Best Life, and it's an organization, it's a community actually, that I have the privilege of saying that I'm a co-founder of, along with Preston and Dean Innes, who are, again, 2 of the most amazing heart-centric souls I know. You said something years ago to me, and I won't forget it, and that is, it's okay to fake it till you make it, but I'd rather faith it till I make it. And I was like, wow, that was such a profound statement. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So I came to that, and wow, you have a really good memory, by the way. You always hear people talking about fake it till you make it, and there's something to it. There's something to acting as if, right? But there's the people that just fake it, like the Instagram trillionaires who are really $30,000 a year folks that, you know, are showing something they don't actually have. And if you want to go past that fake it piece, which there is faking it, there's something to acting as if, there's something to visualization, there's something to kind of living it here before you get it there. But to actually get there, you have to face it till you make it. Okay. And if you're going to take that fake it till you make it and kind of take that staircase to face it till you make it, then you got to jump that next step to faith it till you make it. Because anytime you start facing it, you're diving into problems. And, you know, we discuss it all the time. Problems are gifts. I mean, I think love is the meaning of life, but you know, in the good book, it says, I knew you before you were born. Well, that means that we were in heaven before we were here. Why would we go from somewhere perfect to somewhere imperfect? Why would we go from somewhere infinite to somewhere finite? And you know, if God knew us before we were born, and then we came here, it's like, did we do something wrong?
Right.
What did we do? Like, what did we do to deserve this punishment? We went from perfection to this. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I have it pretty good. So if this is a punishment, I'm not complaining. But I think, like, I look at life and I start thinking, okay, well, if you're going to face it till you make it in a finite world, and you came from that infinite, then you're going to deal with problems, which means problems must be the point. Problems must be the gift.
They are.
And you know, when you fall in love with your problems, and I mean, like, fall in love, everybody talks about wanting a breakthrough. What are you going to break if you're not falling? It's not called a controlled landing in love. It's called falling in love, right? So you got to face it till you make it, dive into your problems. And man, sometimes you get into these problems and it's like, you know, Daniel in the lion's den or David and Goliath. I mean, you just got to know that, hey, I know I can make it through this. I believe. I have no doubt in what's possible. I have no doubt in how amazing God made me. And I know this is going to be tough, but you know, I'm either going to get there or die trying. And that's that faith piece. So it's faith it till you make it, which kind of grows out of face it till you make it, which kind of grows out of fake it till you make it. All of them good, none of them to be judged.
And it's a progression. And again, I've learned so much from you over the years. I listen very, very carefully, as we talked about earlier today, adaptive learning. And for me, it's about continuously stair-stepping off of where you've been and where you're at now, and understanding, to your point, that you're not broken, that you have all these opportunities and life is filled with possibilities. As we say within our community, it's like, hey, progress equals happiness. I go, well, what feeds progress? Well, possibility. And when that's faith, that is like primordial faith. When you know that there's a possibility, that you're going to find a way, that you have this conviction within inside of you. You know, part of what I've always admired about you is your insatiable drive. And I know that your faith and your belief system is a really large part of that. Your Christianity, or your center, if you will. Where do you think that compassion and conviction were cultivated from?
So compassion and conviction, if I had to guess on cultivating that, I think that probably comes from experience and measuring what works and what doesn't. But it's more interesting and more fun to talk about drive. I mean, anyone who's honest, if they talk about drive, they just have to be authentic enough to say that they're scared.
Sure.
Right? Like, you know, I grew up broke. I watched my dad struggle and try to go chase a business and gain that life that other people have on TV. And he wanted that life too. So he opened his business, got cheated, failed in business, basically got told, be a man, collect what you're owed, or don't come home. And he got cheated. He gave up on his finance dreams. And I feared what the good book said, the sins of the father, the sins of the son, right? Like, I feared I was doomed to that. I'm still scared of it. Like, I'm terrified of failure. And when you fear, that false evidence appearing real,
Yep.
is what you have to fight. It's what you have to fake, face, and faith till you make it. And so anyone who tells you, oh, you know, where did your drive come from? Oh, I was born with it. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I mean, if anybody's like, I was born with this drive, I'm like, okay, well, then you were either born terrified or you were born dishonest. You can pick. And you have to, some people are going to deal with fear with that, like, you know, what's it called in that high beta state, that high cortisol state? It's fight or flight. Look, you're either going to run away or you're going to attack. And you could only run away so often. Eventually, if it keeps chasing you, you have to attack. You have to fight back. And that's when you prove who you are. And that's where you learn that conviction and compassion. Because just because you attack, look, winning is not destroying.
Right.
Like, that compassion, that conviction. Look, you and I have been attacked. We've been attacked by some big players. That was part of the beginning of our journey. And like, we triggered the abundance guy. Pretty cool, right? But when they came after us tooth and nail, sent nasty attorneys after us and everything else, we later countersued and threatened back. And then they came and said, hey, well, you know, oh no, what happened? Can we have a non-binding mediation to talk about it? Which, that's a sign that maybe they weren't so sure of themselves, and they shouldn't have been, because it would have been bad, right? Well, we could have continued, we could have gone, but we made the decision not to go for the jugular.
Right.
To honor the journey we'd had and the beautiful memories we'd had with those folks in the past. Like, that conviction, you know, that compassion, like, never allow yourself to have an emotion that you wouldn't choose.
Right.
And if you're living for hatred, if you're living for revenge, if you're living for anger, if you're living for depression, tell me consciously from a real like human point of view that you would choose that emotion. I mean, with all the other choices. And if you would, then I think we need to have a talk about your intelligence, right? Like if you would choose depression over joy, hatred over gratitude or love, I mean, golly, why? And so you and I, and honestly, you were a really big part of that for me, because sometimes I do get into that fight mode, but like I would watch you just take this heart-centered approach, and you made it really easy. I think we had a really good partnership. We had Dean with some of his strategy, me with some of my passion, you with some of your just like pure zest for life, love, and joy. And I think we balanced each other, and we came through that with conviction and compassion. So, but I think that's just, you measure results and you dive into that. But the real key is, I think we were all scared for a moment there.
Oh,
Even doing nothing wrong, it's scary. We did nothing wrong, but we had every right to be scared because he was bigger than us. It was David and Goliath. Obviously, he didn't read the part about how the tall guy doesn't win.
and how you're a really good shot. Uh, well, and I really want to applaud you for something, and that was that in our diversity is actually where we find our strengths as well. That there's never just one approach. It's the sensibilities. It's never one thing. It's everything. And what I was most proud of in that decision as well, not to continue to pursue, because we could have easily. And there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, talk about a belief system. There's zero doubt in my mind that we would have come out victorious. But the cost would have been the energy, the time, and trudging through this muck. For what reason? To say we won? We already knew we were in the right. So to your point, there's this part of me that goes, thank goodness for consciousness. Thank goodness for, to your point, the compassion of going, do we really need to go any further? And it's like, no, we're done. We proved our point.
Sometimes it's better to be smart than right.
Amen, brother. Amen. So thank you for that. Because when you said, when we started to look at it, faking till we make it, and then facing it till we make it, that really is that tempering that you talked about. It's going through those trials and tribulations where we get sometimes the most valued lessons out of life. In fact, I know for me, I have. It's like, and you say this all the time, it's like, I want to be in communities where it's metal sharpens metal. It's not like, oh, we've got some wood in here, we've got some plastic and some rubber, and people are bouncing off each other. It's like, I'm looking to be tempered. There needs to be some heat, but that doesn't mean that it has to be without compassion or love or connection or respect for one another. And that's something that I've always revered in you, is this, hey, I'm going to give it to you straight. Both barrels, it's the truth. So from there, we can move forward. But dancing around stuff doesn't solve much. Some people call it pleasantries or softening. And you go, okay, that's just weakness. And we don't negotiate from a place of weakness. We negotiate from a place of truth and integrity and authenticity.
And if somebody gets triggered or offended in those moments, then they're only getting triggered by the truth, not by you. And that's an indicator that you're standing in the right and doing the right thing. And
Yep.
and that's, I think, just the right way to live in that beautiful state.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Another topic that's so near and dear to you and I, and something that you and I really have been so synergistic around, is family. And I know that you are married to the love of your life. Erin is a beautiful soul and an amazingly strong woman. You have two gorgeous kids, and Everett and Gemma are just two of the most fun-loving children I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And I feel the same way. I'm blessed every day and twice on Sundays. And how do you find that? And I know where your faith comes into this, but I'm going to ask it a slightly different way. How does the strength in your faith give you even more connection to your family?
How does the strength in your faith give you more connection to your family? Well, so I don't think that faith and business and family and frankly fitness, faith, family, fitness, finance are that dissimilar. I mean, it's like four fingers on this hand, right? They're not the same finger, but they're all tethered to one another. You put an anchor on one, it holds down the other. So, my journey probably started as a business journey, then I saw it was possible. And, I that gave me a little faith. But let's look at some comparisons in business, right? Like in business, you want a logo, you want a brand, you want a mission statement, you want a vision statement, you want all those things, right? Well, does that work? And I'll get to the answer on family in a second, but I want to make this comparison because I think this might be an aha moment for folks. What about in faith? Is there generally an icon or a logo around nearly every spirituality or religion? I mean, if you're Christian, there's a cross.
Yeah, there's
And every
symbolism.
religion has something, right?
Yep.
Well, what about a family? We've gotten away from this so much these days, but I look at that cross and I think, okay, well, what's your mission statement? Well, what's the main two things, right? Love him above all else and love each other, right? Well, okay, so that's the mission statement. Pretty simple. Love it, right? Well, you go into a business and here's a logo and whatever, say it's Zia Homes or whatever, and what's your mission statement? We want to build a custom quality home with all the amenities in a production home box so that you can afford to live the life of your dreams on an everyday budget, right? Like, so, okay, well, we got it in finance. Well, what are we looking at in fitness? I mean, we're probably not, like, in shape doesn't mean round. No. Like, we have an iconic idea of what fitness means. Like, exactly. You want that 6-8 pack abs, you want those shoulders, you want like that nice figure. Like, there's an image, right, that comes to fitness, okay? And there's probably an image that comes to you're not very fit either. Like, it's a different kind of cross, a red one with the ambulance showing up. So there's logos for both. Well, what about family? Like, let's look at families that are generational. And let's look at how faith works in this way, finance works this way, fitness works in this way. There's this icon, this idea. If you go look at two families and let's make a comparison, find me the logo for the Vanderbilt family. Wealthiest family in the world.
Yep.
Right? And I don't remember their logo.
No.
But if I go look up the logo for the Rothschilds, I can find their coat of arms.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at ancient families, every dynasty, every long-standing family had a family crest. They all had a logo. They all had a mission statement. They all had values preached. They all had, this is what we're about. This is who we are. You might be merchants. You might be this. You might be that. But they had what they do. And so how does my faith cross into family? I think anybody who's leading that doesn't have faith is probably not a leader you want to follow. So, I think it makes me a better leader because influence can go one of two directions, right? You can be a leader or a manipulator. Both of them are influencing. And people of faith, they work for something bigger than themselves. So, let's look at the comparisons, right? Like a leader loves the outcome, so does manipulator. Leader loves himself. Okay, well, so does the manipulator. Leader loves the people involved. Ooh, that's where we're missing one piece of the pie that makes up the leader versus the manipulator. So I think a man of faith or a woman of faith is going to be somebody that values leadership over manipulation, at least, in most cases, hopefully. And then I look at like some of the cross-pollinizations between faith, family, fitness, finance. Success leaves clues, right? So how does it make me a better family man? Well, I know what I believe and I can measure the fruits that I've had, and I can go look at people with more fruits and measure the fruits they've had and make a compare contrast way to what they've believed and what they've thought of, what they've talked about. I bring that to my kids. Like, we have a family crest. We have mission, vision, values statements. We have all these things so that we can create this generational impact, not so much wealth, not so much money. Money doesn't matter. And funny, because you say centimillionaire and that's true, but like I could care less about money. I don't care about it. It doesn't matter. It's literally stored energy meant to leverage something else. When I have like businesses or situations where something goes wrong or one person takes more than me, I'm generally the first to say, hey, you know what? No, I'll do this. No, let's do this. No, let's handle it this way. And I think that the extra money or revenue I've had gives me the ability to put what I feel is right first rather than the check in that moment. Does that make sense? So,
and I love that, because that's where for me, just that the tying the strings together, that's that faith component. It's like going, there's a moral compass, there's a sense of value and worth internally within yourself. And it's something that oftentimes, at least in my purview of the world, brother, that faith is dismissed. And I go, no, I have faith. And they go, well, what does that even mean? I said, I have conviction in my soul that I know what's right, and I know the right thing to do, and who I get to be, that I choose to be in this moment.
Yeah. And also, like, faith is, well, let's go back to the meaning of life, and let's dissect the meaning of life, right? So if we think the meaning of life is love, right? Like, it says he loves us, it says he knew us before we were born, and then he sent us here. So the meaning of life is also problems, right? So
Sure.
probably maybe the meaning of life is also learning. Maybe it's not one meaning. Maybe there's learning, maybe there's problems, maybe there's love. But let's just focus in on that love one, because it's pretty critical, okay? If love is the meaning of life, then we would need to measure love to be successful, right? Well, how do you measure love, do you know?
For me, it's simple. And love for me is fulfillment, because that's
I'm gonna go a different direction. I love that, but let me go a different direction.
please.
So when we say conditional love or unconditional love, when you love somebody beyond your conditions, you are suffering. So love can be measured through suffering. The greatest example, I think, was Jesus. Like, he went on the cross, the men casting lots for his clothes. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yes.
He loved men, taking his last earthly goods and belongings, and wanted to forgive them. He forgave a thief next to him for faith alone, after a life of sin and criminal behavior. Like, the man was pure love, and he suffered for everyone. And here's the thing, like, when you look at the paradox of what he represents, and the only religion that has something like that, by the way, if God is God, then God didn't need to send Jesus to die for our sins. He could have snapped his fingers and said, you're forgiven.
Sure.
But he loved us so much to actually send this idea, this indicator, this example, which was him himself manifested in human form, however you believe that, right? And to die for us so that we could have a visual example, a story, a testimony, a truth, and just something that we could chew on and fully understand. And that day he proved that you can only love as much as you can suffer. And so your faith gives you the ability to love yourself, love your purpose, and suffer for those things. It says in the good book, if you want to be the greatest, you must be the least. And then he washed everybody's feet, right? Like, so if you make yourself the least, you're really making yourself the greatest. It doesn't, he didn't, when he said the meek shall inherit the earth, he wasn't talking about weak.
No.
They're powerful. They're powerful. They're powerful like the oceans. The oceans are wise enough to sit beneath the rivers and the lakes and the streams, and they all flow into them. And the oceans are the only ones that have tidal waves. You don't see tidal waves on freaking rivers or lakes.
True.
Or streams, babbling brooks. There ain't no tidal waves. So where's all the power? It's in those that are the least. And if you can love enough to suffer, whether it's for your business, whether it's for your family, whether it's for your purpose, whether it's for what, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have the faith to know that if it's right, the outcomes will go in the right direction. You measure that tree by its fruits. And if the fruits aren't there in the long term, hey, go find another tree. It's okay. Like, you have a whole garden. Like, we all worry, oh, how big is God? Well, let's talk about the universe. The universe is one verse in a song, in a book, in a library of songs. Kind of small, right? There's probably another tree you could go measure if that one doesn't fit. Find another tree, like measure a tree by its fruits. Hey, this one ain't working. Okay, let's go plant another one. No big deal. But that way you can suffer your way to success. You can love more than you suffer. Like, there's my baby girl, Gemma. Say hi, Gemma.
Hi.
And I love her enough.
I need to show you.
Oh, hold on, you silly girl. But let's say, let's talk love, right? Like, I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in dying. But if I don't believe in killing and I don't believe in dying, but I would kill or die for her, then I am willing to love beyond my conditions. Because my beliefs tell me that killing is wrong and dying is wrong. So if killing is wrong and dying is wrong, then I would suffer more than my own beliefs for her. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's how faith ties into family, if that answers that question in a roundabout way. Hold on, baby.
No, it's amazing, brother. And to your point, it's interesting that, yes, God could have snapped his fingers and then resolved and changed everything. And the truth is that we as human beings learn by example. And so when we see someone who's facing it till they make it, and that's what Jesus, the representation was. He faced it his entire life, as short as it was. And the level of commitment and fortitude and influence and what he gave us as a living example that allowed all of us to get the lessons. Had someone snapped their fingers, it would have been removed, but there would have been no lesson. There would have been no depth. There would have been no learning, to your point. The adaptive, education that comes along with that. And there is, to your point, a sacrifice. And I believe I see you as a father. I see you as a husband. And the commitments and shifts that you've made in even your business life, where you've reprioritized what is most important to you in life. Because magical moments, yes, we get to help create those. We get to help manifest those. And then there are those times the moments just happen esoterically and organically, or we didn't even have to manifest anything. We were just present for it and got to witness it. And it's like, is that any less a miracle than, someone who has a breakthrough? And I would contest no. They're all valuable. They're all valuable. Wow.
Amen.
Gosh, brother. I'd like to help those at home that may be struggling with the terminology of fortune or freedom. And they're similar and different in some ways, depending on how you define it. But one of the things that we've always loved to do on this show, and again, this is as much your show as it's mine or anyone else's, is it's about your best life. How would you describe how someone can help identify what fortune could mean for them? Because in so many terms, when I was growing up, fortune was monetary in its reference. And as I've become more experienced, I find that fortune is many things and money isn't necessarily one of them.
So let me jump into freedom really quick first.
Please, thank you.
I want to dispel freedom. Freedom is one of those things that, you could be more free than somebody else maybe, but you'll never be free. Okay. And we all talk about freedom, and I think a lot of people value freedom, and that's like valuing pain to me.
Yes.
That's my opinion of it, because you're not free. You will be a slave to your health. I hope this is not true for you, but I have a sneaking hunch that, we'll all die one day, and that probably means everybody on this show, watching this show, that will watch this show, that won't watch this show, and everybody else too, right? And so you will not be free. If you decide to become an entrepreneur or a business person, you will be a slave to that business for a while. Now, eventually, you might become far more successful, far more wealthy, but then you become a servant rather than slave. I don't like the word slave, but servant is maybe a better word. To your family. Like, now we have wealth, and I'm looking at my children and I'm like, how do I raise them? I have no idea how to do that. I grew up poor and they are growing up wealthy. I never climbed onto a private jet as a kid. And my kid will be like, Mom, why are we flying commercial? And I'm like, you little. So now I am a servant to making sure that I engineer character in an area where most people fail with the exact same situation. You will be a servant to learning. And if you're not always learning, then something will enslave you. So freedom, get over it. It doesn't exist. Exactly. And fortune, I used to always hear like, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? And that's a really good thing, a statement. But I stopped one day and I asked, what's the gold? Like, I don't see anybody walking around with bars of gold.
Exactly.
So what's the gold? And the funny part about gold is, the gold for me has nothing to do with money. The gold for me has to do with time with my family. Like, time having fun, like, magic moments, loving experiences, great conversations like this, helping others. Like, I'm shifting my goals from how much can I make to how much can I give, and like, so what is the gold? Who has the gold you want? How can you get close to them? Not necessarily to take it. Sometimes it's just to learn from them. Like,
Oh,
abundance is more about like, how do I go create relationships and resources and opportunities and all of this, because your gold may not be exactly like my gold. My gold may not be exactly like your gold. And
right.
that's where we have this exchange that just like magically compounds into abundance. Like, there is so much out there and there's more than anyone would ever need. I mean, lack, even though we do live in a finite world and we will grow old and die, this not enough idea is bogus. I mean, there's so much more than we all need, and we live in the best time in the world, and everybody's mad at each other. It's literally the most comical time I think the planet has ever experienced.
I would agree. Prosperity is kind of a state of being. And because if you're grateful and you feel abundant and you're filling up, I don't know if there's any better feeling of satiation outside of sharing it with people that you love and appreciate. It's like, what makes giving better? Well, being able to give more, share more, see the smiles it puts on other people's faces, and to be able to just be able to participate in that level of life. And part of it is living and being within self, and then also transitioning outside of self, where now we're giving because we get to and we decide to and we love doing it. And that feels like such an abundant life.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it is abundant. And the part about giving, you can't give what you haven't earned, and you can't earn what you haven't created, right? So like, we're always all creating something. Everybody's creating something. I mean, you could be going to work and creating some money. You could be opening a business and creating real wealth. You could be building something and making a chair or a table. You could be pissed off and not consciously aware and creating a terrible marriage or a miserable child or a sad family. You're creating something all the time. You don't necessarily know what you're creating if you're not consciously involved and aware. But once you realize, oh wait, I'm always creating, and I can leverage that creation into giving. Here's the funny thing about giving, especially genuine giving, not giving to get, but giving to give. You wind up receiving so much more than you ever thought. Like, it's interesting that I could probably never pay for lunch again. I could probably spend the next year or 5 years staying at friends' houses, eating other people's food, and I could just go leverage relationship capital that I've stored up in a bank, and at least for the next 5 or 10 years, just go mooch. Now, I'd never do that, but like, just some of the love that people like dole out on me because I either say I put on events, or I helped their family, or their mortgage was behind and I helped them get caught up, or whatever it is, in whatever day or whatever moment, or I gave them a piece of advice and their business succeeded and they blame me for their success. And I'm like, well, thank you, but you still did the work, and I mean, like, it comes back. If you want to receive, you must figure out how you're generous, but you can't be generous to anyone more than you're generous to yourself. You cannot love someone more than you can love yourself. So if you can love yourself a 10 out of 10, and 10's the max, guess what? Then you can love others that way too. You can be generous that way too. You can give that way too, and it will all come back. And you don't have to give all the same stuff. It doesn't have to all be money. A lot of times people hear giving and they all go, oh, shoot, he's going to ask for money. No. You can give time, talent, treasure, testimony. Yep. You can give truth. I mean,
Absolutely. There's all forms of currency and I will say contribution. It used to be people say, oh, well, what's the cost? And I go, well, the contribution? They go, well, what's the difference? They said, well, one, you're freely giving. The other one, you make it sound like you have to, or you have to buy something, or that you're giving to get. You said something, though, just a moment ago that really struck a chord for me. And I want to thank you for this. And that was, you can't give what you aren't. And I'm paraphrasing, but there are so many people in today's world of living in this influential ideology where they can jump on a platform. And you referenced this earlier. People are giving away things that they don't even have ownership of. They're giving away things. And I've always admired you for giving credit to source. And when you didn't know, you're like, I don't even know where I heard this, but it was brilliant and it wasn't mine. But here's what it is. And I love that. because it shows that you are into adaptive learning and that you're a student of the world, that you're constantly, picking up and gleaning things. It's like, oh, you know what? I heard this 20 years ago and it just didn't hit me till now. But so here it is. Don't even know whose it is, but here you go. That is so genuine. And what it really shows people, going back to, again, that cornerstone of faith, is you're owning you. You're appreciating you. And you found that it helped you. And by sharing with someone else, it's like, hey, it's not mine to keep. Isn't it the, how do they say it, Preston? Your story is not yours to keep, it's to share.
Yeah. Everything we do is stories. Movies are stories. People tell stories. If it's not a story, most of the time people aren't listening. So, and everybody judges a story by the ending. When they hear it from the beginning to the ending, they almost always fall in love with it because there's a lesson in the story.
Yes.
There's a reason people sat around campfires telling stories for 40,000 years of human history. It's part of our DNA. I mean, now we're finding out with modern science that stories are in your genes. Like, if your parents were stressed out, you have a higher likelihood of being stressed out through what's called an epigenetic transfer or something. I mean, stories translate even in muscle memory. What the heck?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we are literally a living story.
Well, and was it our brother Nassim Haramein says, you're made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So he's figured out the biochemical hack in your body. And if you're resonating at a certain frequency, you can adjust that frequency.
Yeah.
That's why there's an attraction strategy with different people. And it doesn't mean that we're all at the same frequency all the time. It means that when we're in that state, though, there's instantaneous connection, there's an appreciation, and there's almost a level of understanding that comes along with that. And I would say, like, for you and Aaron, it's like going, oh, it's just that you're at that frequency together a lot more often. Same way with your kids. Same way I am with my wife and my kids. Doesn't mean I'm always there. There are times when I'm like going, hey, it would be really nice to go out and drive a sports car really quickly for a little while. Or, hey, to go hang out with the fellas for a little bit. Then I always yearn for that energy of my home. Because when you're gone for too long, it's like, I just can't wait to get back. Because it feels like home. Feels like
meet
home.
the need, get the adventure, come back.
Yeah. And life is about experiences.
I think part of the story is we've lost the ability to tell stories as a society. And if we can worry more about what people mean than what they're saying.
Yes.
One of the most interesting things, like everybody's talking about freedom of speech in the last few years. And, I thought about freedom of speech, and it's been kind of one of the constant thoughts in my head, not to go into a political realm, and we'll avoid the politics of it. But I kind of got to thinking, what's the point of the freedom of speech if people don't even know what words mean anymore?
Exactly.
I was in a fairly good sized room the other day, and I asked people, what does entitlement mean? What does entitlement mean? What does entitlement mean? And I went around the room and nobody knew what it meant. If you are entitled, you own something. You have the title. That's what it means. Entitled. Now, so false entitlement would be what everybody was describing as entitlement, right? Like so we've gone to war with words, and people no longer know how to express themselves in a way that somebody else will understand them.
Right.
And I think we should all get very used to saying things like, especially if we want to have the right faith and the right relationships, faith and family, saying, what do you mean? Like, sometimes I'll get an email, and it's funny because there'll be a kind of vague email. Hey, do this, this, and this is there. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know which one of the 19 companies this has to do with. And, he copied 6 people, but he didn't name anyone. And then, like, I'll be like, I don't understand the context of this email. Can you reference what you're talking about, please? And of course, then I'll put Dean, because he loves to do that.
That's awesome. Well, to your point, there's something that you and I learned years ago, and that was that there's this pervasive use of accolades to people. Some people say participation medals, other people go, but there's this, oh, you're an amazing human being. And it's like, okay, that's a very vague and general term. In what sense of my life are you, like, directing that at? Faith, family, fitness, finance, personality, physical. What are we talking about here? And specificity, to your point, is so key. It's so key because generalities actually create more uncertainty for people who are not comfortable in their own skin. And yet when we are specific, we actually give specific focus to allowing someone to grow and actually feel edified and lifted, because now they know with certainty how they were, someone was inspired or thought they were a great human being or whatever the case might be. And they get to stack on top of that.
Yeah.
Which is always important.
I think specificity is critical. I think like telling people the truth is critical. And I don't see anything wrong with being polite. Like being polite's good, but
absolutely.
But we should never be, you know, you ever heard the phrase like lavished with praise or whatever? Like, unless it's real, don't do it. Like you wouldn't do it with your children, because then they're going to become the new meaning of the word entitled, which means have false entitlement, right? You can actually hurt people with compliments.
Oh,
say somebody has horrible self-esteem, like they don't have the right self-worth, they don't believe that, you know, they're a great person, and you keep telling them you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing, and they're like, well, shoot, I don't even like me, I'm done with this world.
No, I get it.
So we've got to be like very careful with our words. I mean, like the formation of words is such an interesting process. It, you know, every word is a prophecy. It says in the good book, like, you know, he started the entire universe with a word, like let there be light. He breathed life into people. Like, okay, you know, breath and words are very, very coveted in all scripture. I mean, I think the breath is called the ruach, and you know, if people don't think they're praying, just try breathing loudly. If somebody's like, "Oh, I never pray," and you say Yahweh every time you breathe deep, so it's kind of weird how you didn't realize you were praying every breath and weren't even sure to who. Wow. So like if we look at words and how they work, they're formed through the process of spelling. And spells are things that people would cast to create or destroy or whatever, right? So we need to be very careful of our words. There's nothing wrong with being polite. There's nothing wrong with paying a genuine compliment. But a lot of times words should be used for more of a query, like, hey man, how are you really? Where are you at? Like, dude, I mean, I see you here, and here's the way I think you're amazing, but also I see you a little down today. Can we talk? Like, I love you. I don't ever want you down. I want to make sure I'm there for you. Like, whatever you need, like, I got your back. Like, just sometimes we'll think we're lavishing with praise and it's going to help, and it might actually hurt more, whereas they just needed you to ask them a question and let them get it out. Like, you know, significant emotional events in life create significant emotional events. Them letting some of those words out and venting what's really going on. And then you can figure out where the real problem is, the real truth is, and they might have that fall in love and break through process that they need.
No, that's beautiful, man. Preston, we could go on all day. I mean, seriously, Eduardo's like picking over here, and he's like, oh, this is amazing, this is cool. You got to rap. So the gift of live television. Brother, I love you from the center of my heart. You are a gift in my life, and you and your family. Thank you for this journey that we have ventured into together, not only in our business partnership, but in our friendship. You mean the world to me, and I'm so grateful to have you on and for you to share your wisdom, your gifts, and your talents with all of us. I hope that everyone watches this back on one of the replays as well, but that you have a chance to review this and take in all the love that this man just shared with you. I love you,
brother.
Thank you, my man. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check us out for all the news and all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.